Thanks for joining us tonight for our regular city council meeting. As I usually do, I'm going to take a minute just to run through the agenda before I officially call the meeting to order so that we can all be on the same page about what's before us this evening. So we do have a presentation right at the beginning from our pedestrian and bicycle committee, and we're looking forward to that. Then we have 4 resident speakers who have signed up to speak. They will each get up to 3 minutes to speak, and we'll take those speakers as expeditiously as we can. If we do get to a point, I don't think we will tonight, based on the public hearing schedule, where a public hearing comes along, we would need to pause the public speakers and come back. But I don't think that will happen. We have a couple public hearings that are either postponed or canceled this evening. I'll say more about that when we come to them. We do have an 8:15 public hearing, some routine business, and then we will also take a break for subcommittee work, come back to finish everything up. So with that, I'll officially call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, December 2nd, 7:00 p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crowley? Here. Feldman? Here. Houseman? Here. Rotundo? Here. Spang? Here. St. Hilaire? Here. Sweeney? Here. And Flowers.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councilor Sweeney, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Councilor Sweeney. And Councilor Sweeney, you got 2 in a row with that special meeting. Don't worry, everybody else, your turn will come. So as I mentioned, we do have a presentation from the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and so I'd love to invite them up to kick things off. This is a relatively newly formed committee in our community, and we're very excited to hear from you all. Thank you so much for being here.
Great. My name's Jared Porter. I'm a member of the committee, and these are my colleagues back here. The first thing that we're going to show you is the accident.
Jared.
Up there.
Yeah. No. Sit down for a second. Let me give context first.
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. We're anxious to go. I'm Kyle Kiumsen, chair of the committee. That committee is here. One individual is not. This was formed just a year ago. It's fully staffed. We had our first meeting in July. You've got a briefing deck that outlines the current areas of focus. And our first area of focus is understanding incident data, which is what Jared's going to talk about, which is how many bicyclists and pedestrian incidents we've had over the last several years in Beverly. Frequency, severity, location, trying to understand why we have incidents, and more importantly, how to prevent them in the future. So we want to take time to go through that data. That will be an actual presentation. Following that, another area of focus is on our bike map. We have a city bike map, which is in the master plan. We're looking at integrating that bike map with the 3-year paving plan, understanding where we want to put paint on pavement and signage independent to paving. And also, as a note, bicycle infrastructure goes beyond roadway markings and signage. It includes connections to mass transport. It includes safe and secure bicycle parking, and it includes potential bike share programs. So we'll talk about those things in the future as we learn more. Another area of focus, which is in your briefing deck, is walk audits. We're going to conduct a series of walk audits in 2025. Walk audits will be determined on a ward-by-ward basis based upon 2 factors. 1, where do we have incidents? And 2, resident input. And our program plan approach involves all of you, because we want the city council from each ward to lead the plan for that particular ward for where we're going to do walk audits. Right? We're going to have 2 protocols. We're going to have a protocol looking at intersections, and we're going to have a protocol looking at routes, like a route to school, route to shopping, etc. So 2 very specific audit protocols. We're going to pilot walk audits with Walk Massachusetts here in Beverly in January. We're going to then run protocol audits in February in wards 1 and wards 2, fine-tune the plan, and then roll it out to complete it in May. That's on walk audits. 2 items that we're not going to talk about tonight, but that are areas of focus. First is an economic framework. What's the economic implications of implementing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure? In your briefing deck, we included the framework and how to think about that and what other communities have learned, what have been the results from other communities. We'll talk about that in May. Jennifer Plowden is leading that effort. And lastly is Vision Zero. Roadways is designed to optimize motor vehicle throughput. An alternative approach is to rethink your roadways based upon having zero incidents, zero fatalities, zero serious incidents. Vision Zero has been implemented in a lot of major metropolitan areas throughout the country. There's a lot that we can learn from what other cities have done. So we'll be talking about that again in May in terms of what that might mean for Beverly and future implications for Beverly. Tonight, we want to get into the incident data, followed by implementation of the bike map. So Jarrett, now you're on.
All right. Sorry for jumping the gun, Carl. I got so excited. So just a little bit of information about how we gathered this. So we had incident data from 2020 to 2023 that the Beverly Police Department provided for us. And from printed reports, I tried to transcribe as faithfully as possible the notes with each incident. So there's really no editorializing there. I have a spreadsheet with the notes that are from the reports. I just typed them up and added them in there. And then, as you'll see later, added all of those locations to a Google map layer. So it has time and date of the incident and the notes from the police report in that as well. So we can kind of look at the information in a variety of different ways. So that's just kind of what I just covered right there. You know, it's the basics of what, when, and where. And this is what we're looking at for 2020 to 2023 in terms of overall motor vehicle, so MV versus pedestrian, and motor vehicle versus bike. And so in 2020, the blue line, that's pedestrian, and the orange line is bike. And so 11 incidents in 2020 and 9 for bikes. And it stayed relatively flat in 21, a slight increase, and then dipped down in 2022. But one of the things that is concerning is that we then see an increase here. So overall, in averages, we're down in bicycle incidents, but we have increased 2022 to 2023 about 33%. And more concerningly is we've gotten from 10 to 15 for pedestrians in particular. And overall, the number of pedestrian incidents was higher than in cyclists. So you can see here, total incidents, so you've got 24 total in 2023, up from 20 in 2020. So an overall 17% increase over that time period. And the total accidents overall was 79. So not an astronomical number, but still very concerning, especially the pedestrian incidents. This is what it looks like in Google Maps. So all of the blue pins are representing incidents where bicycles were involved with motor vehicles, and the red where pedestrians are. And you can see the concentrations here on Rantoul and Cabot Street in particular. There's a few other spots here. But what we were thinking about doing is using this to kind of identify hot spots where we wanted to start our walk audits for the different wards. The primary times that these incidents occurred, so there's a concentration between 8 and 9 a.m. and 4 and 6 p.m. So a lot of this stuff's not super surprising in that respect. It's sort of what you would anticipate, but it's good to have it actually recorded in one place. So the next steps, use the catalog data to decide where we're going to start the walk audits. We are going to go ward by ward with those. Determine what conditions besides operator error may have contributed to the incident. So if there are things that are inherent to the infrastructure approach, that are adding to the hazards that pedestrians and cyclists are facing, in conjunction with motorists. We really want this to work for everybody. It's not singularly focused, although the vulnerable road users, those are the folks that we're really concerned about in our committee, but we don't want to alienate motorists at the same time. We just want the infrastructure to be safe and work as best it can for everybody. The other thing that I really want to do is work with the Beverly Police Department and see if we can start to come up with a more normalized way of capturing this information. If I showed you the spreadsheet, you'd see that the notes vary widely in terms of their level of detail. Some of them are merely incident between pedestrian and motor vehicle, as an example, while others give some context or whether the person was hospitalized, so giving you some indication of the severity of the incident. But the data that we have access to is really varied in its overall descriptiveness. And so we'd like to try and get some level of standardization there, just so that, one officer to the next, that there's sort of a similar approach if we can agree upon that. And so with that, that's the accident data. I don't know if people want to ask questions right now or whether we'll turn it over to Lisa. Oh, wait, this is PowerPoint, sorry. That's better. There you go.
Good evening, counselors. So some or all of you may be familiar, but back in just pre-COVID, so about 2019, the Beverly Bike Committee worked with the GIS Department and Engineering to develop kind of a master plan, bike infrastructure plan for the city. It identified a number of roadways where there were preferred treatments and the status. So is it complete? Is it partially complete? Has it not been done yet? So treatments vary from signage to bike lanes to shared use paths, a whole manner of things. Some of the treatment preferences have changed over time. So when the committee was newly formed last year, we kind of looked at where we thought we were and where we wanted to head and kind of rethought that approach a bit. We've also updated, obviously since its inception, we've been paving roadways throughout the city. We've been accomplishing some of these goals. So we came at it with a fresh new kind of decision on where we would be. I really wish that it was a little cleaner to read, but in doing this, as you all know, we've also been working on the 3-year bike paving plan, so we know what we've paved this year, what we're hoping to accomplish next year and the year after. Obviously, that is pending available budgets to do so, but we know at least the rough framework of what we're hoping to accomplish. So we could take a look at how many lane miles of roadway we had called treatments out to be, how much we've accomplished since its inception, how much we've accomplished with this year's paving plan, next year's paving plan, 2026's paving plan, and what we would still be outstanding come 2027 at the end of the process. So the colors are really nice if you could actually look at the map, but tabulated, like I said, we've got kind of the names of the streets, the speed limit associated with the roadway, which also sometimes changes what you think about the infrastructure in place, how long the roadway is, and whether or not it's complete, incomplete, et cetera. So in the end, there are 41-ish miles of roadway identified with the bike committee that could or should have some sort of infrastructure in it. To date, that number's slightly off because DPW installed some more of my signage last week. So we had 19.25 miles completed as of last Monday, but as of today, we're actually closer to 22 miles. Based on next year's paving plan, we would hope to be accomplishing almost 9 miles more of the plan. Another 3 miles would be completed in 26, which leaves, again, numbers are slightly different. It'll be just about probably 7 miles of what had been identified still to come by 2027. Now, that does not mean that by 2027 we will not have done those last 7 miles. It's just based on the paving plan and where we are, that's how we expect to be. Obviously, we would love to add additional signage in extra places. You might have seen them in round. The state came out with a program and provided us free of charge a number of motorists shall give 4 feet to pass signs. So they've been installed in places where other bike infrastructure is not preferred. So you'll see them on Upper Cabot heading out towards Wenham, Hull Street, Essex Street, places like that. So a number of signage has been completed. We obviously, when we repave roads, we restripe them and we add bike lanes where possible and edge lines and things like that. So it has always been our policy to incorporate bike infrastructure. It's just we're at the mercy of budgets and our ability to accomplish anything in any given year. So in working with the committee and working with Jonathan Salt from Beverly Bike, who has been really instrumental in kind of rethinking what appropriate measures should be in place and how people really are using these infrastructure. And you don't want to put infrastructure for infrastructure's sake. You want it to be safe and usable and have it make sense. So as Sharon mentioned, the next steps that I believe the committee should be undertaking is to now overlay the accident data with all of this. If accidents are occurring in a place that doesn't have infrastructure, obviously we should prioritize getting infrastructure in place. If it's occurring in places that have infrastructure, then we have to dig a little deeper. Is the infrastructure appropriate? Was there something else going on in that accident? Something of that nature. The other thing to also identify in all of this is bike infrastructure is not just for bicyclists. It also improves pedestrian experiences as well, because if you could safely bike not on a sidewalk, it improves your pedestrian access as well. So it's a number of moving parts that we are trying to kind of weave together. And I think that the deeper dive we can go with the accident data, it will be helpful. But ultimately, we, by the end of this current paving plan, will have at least 80% of the bike plan in place and functional. So I'm going to call that a win. I don't particularly ride a bike, but I'm gonna call it a win. And yeah, so we're just looking for ways that we could keep evolving and keep incorporating, obviously, necessary treatments, while also making sure that things we thought we knew are still valid and how we move forward from there. So I'm very excited that the committee has been as involved as they are and are very enthusiastic to kind of help engineering in particular and DPW kind of move forward as we navigate ever-changing regulations and preferences. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you all very much for that presentation and for being here with us and the work you're already doing. Counselors, are there any questions or comments? Counselor Feldman.
Yes, thank you. And I've met with a few of you before about this. I'm very enthusiastic about this type of access and infrastructure. My one question, when you said we don't like putting in infrastructure just for the sake of putting it in, it has to be safe. And I'm wondering if in the data that you had about the crash accidents or the incidents, how many of those were with cyclists or pedestrians using the correct infrastructure anyway? Because that to me is like a part of the analysis. If somebody, you know, I was in an accident, I was in a bike lane, and if I'm using the bike lane appropriately, and that's the safe thing to do, but if those are the sources of the accidents, I'm just curious if like anything is put into the thought process of what the infrastructure is. And then additionally, you know, I know the bike lanes and everything here are just striped and it's pavement. And I know in other places there's, you know, painted like green or like little raised things. So are there any thoughts in place to look at like the incidents with the infrastructure that is safe and the way you're supposed to use it, or in making that better? Just curious.
Thank you, Counselor. I was going to say, if you come into the microphone, thank you.
Yes, so that's going to be the next step. So we haven't had a chance to dive in and see exactly where the accidents are occurring. I do know, obviously yours, some accidents have occurred in places where there is infrastructure in place. So that comes the next step of, was there some other precipitating incident that we can glean from any of the reports that say, well, they were in a bike lane, but did something else happen? was there a medical emergency from the driver? Was there something else that happened? There's other also factors, so it's not necessarily that the bike lane was unsafe or was the inappropriate use, just there's a lot more digging that we have to do. The other thing to note is that data is just from police reports, so there are obviously way more incidents that just go unreported. So all of those accidents are only what actually made it to the police. So obviously, people in bikes get hit by cars all the time and they don't necessarily report anything, they think they're fine. So that would be another level of, I don't even know how we would capture that, but it's just understanding that there are incidents that go unreported. But yes, so the next step is to then, we can actually just in the mapping overlay all the accidents onto the bike map as it is and say, okay, well, Rantoul Street had 15 accidents and there's a bike lane on Rantoul. So let's dig deeper into those and figure out what it was that caused those accidents.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Houseman, we'll just do a few more, and then I think if folks have more conversation you want to have with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, we'll dig in, just knowing we have some things to get to. Counselor Houseman.
Yeah, just one question about your database. So I think, Carl, you mentioned that the incidence reports in some cases, and maybe in most of the cases, I don't know, were a little thin on the details, and I wonder whether you're getting a good reception from the police department in terms of working with you to sort of establish a protocol on reporting for that, because it's one thing to know the time and the location, but none of the other aspects that might be relevant to figuring out how to improve safety.
Yeah, so in meeting with the police department, it was clear that we have a similar mission here, which is to understand better what's happening. It seems like there are a couple of things that are happening simultaneously. One is the police department is interested in gathering more information that is more specific. So obviously, local cooperation with them is critical. There are also, from my understanding, revamping the way that incident data is collected at the time of the incident. So the police are working on a new standard for that as well. So what that tells me is they're aware that there are some gaps in the information. They want to dig deeper. And so I think that there's a great opportunity to work with the police and that we have their cooperation in that respect. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. A big thank you to the committee for getting so much work done in the early days and laying out a game plan. I'm very excited about the walk audits. Would love to participate in some of those, and just curious for folks who may be watching and have like problem intersections they know about or routes that they walk regularly, the best way to get involved and flag those either for counselors or for members of the committee.
Will you come on up to the microphone? I want the viewers on BevCam to get to hear you too.
When we put together the actual plan, when we look at the incident data, and we look at the plan, like I said, that we'll execute walk audits based upon two primary inputs, one of which is incident data, and the other is resident input. Now, that's the role that I want you to play, is I want you to look at the data for your ward, and I want you to contact residents in your ward around who would like to participate in walk audits. So I expect you to be involved in the communications plan for walk audits, for getting people within your ward to participate in walk audits. Engineering will participate, the bike committee will participate, the police department may be participating, the mayor said he wanted to participate, but we want to get residents from your wards to participate, so to answer your question. Walk audits can be a very powerful tool, but we want to make sure that we document the observations in a manner that's most useful to engineering in terms of revamping current infrastructure or future infrastructure. MassDOT has something like 15 different protocols or designs for crosswalks. What's the best design for a given situation? What's the economics of that design? That's how we want to try to approach this. Right? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments from counselors? All right, well, our thanks again to the members of this committee. Thanks for being here. Thanks for this presentation. I think we learned a lot, and I'm sure the public watching did as well. And we'll look forward to having you all back for an update as walk audits get going as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go now to our comments from residents who have signed up. And these are speaker spots that are available at any of our regular council meetings. They can be signed up for by contacting the city clerk no later than 9:30 the morning of the meeting. And there are 5 spots available at any regular meeting for up to 3 minutes per speaker. And they are given out on a first come, first served basis. So when you're contacting the clerk, she will confirm with you in the order that she hears from you. So with that, I will ask Vice President Crowley, it looks like you have your timer already out. Vice President Crowley will be our timekeeper just to ensure that it's fair and equitable for everyone. When you hear his timer go off, that will signal the end of the 3 minutes. And so if you could draw your remarks to a close at that point. And I do know he doesn't start till you say your name and address, so that doesn't eat up your 3 minutes. So our first speaker signed up is Samantha Mooney Harris. And if you would begin with your name and address for the record, and then you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, Samantha Mooney Harris, 161 Lothrop Street. Okay. When I signed up to speak at the city council meeting, I was sure that we would still be in the throes of a teacher strike. I'm beyond happy that this is not the case. And now that I stand here awkwardly, not really knowing exactly what to say as it pertains to this council meeting, I thought that maybe I should just cancel my spot, not wanting to take the floor away from somebody else who might have an actual well-formed question or comment for the council. But I am beside myself with gratitude, and I want to stand here, shaking in my boots, to say thank you to the city council, the BTA, and the school committee. I know that there were difficult decisions to make and hard lines that needed to be drawn. I want to thank all the members of the city council for showing bravery to talk in front of the public about a subject that is very important to our community. Thank you for having the strength to show emotion and still talk to us. I know many in the community feel the same way as I do. Thank you for modeling behavior that I'm proud to show my children. As suggested, as a member of this community, I am here tonight to stay informed and get involved. I do want to better understand decisions we need to make as a city. Much attention has been given to the proposed salary increase for the mayor and school committee, but this can't be more than a drop in the bucket of our overall budget. So I'm here, I guess, to ask the city council to help find ways to make the coming budgetary decisions more digestible to us citizens, people like me that don't understand the whole workings. I do want to engage, but like many, I don't have the time to make it to every council meeting or to read through the minutes. So any help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. Our next speaker signed up to speak is Megan Walsh. And if you also would begin with your name and address for the record, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, Megan Walsh, 3 Blake Street here in Beverly. She took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, so thank you. Here it is for my 4th time in this council chambers in as many weeks. There's been a lot of things, I think, that have come to our attention in the community over the past few weeks. And I want to make sure I use this time tonight to first say thank you to you all on the city council for providing a place and a space for people to voice their concerns, both the educators and the community members. And I do also want to say thank you for allowing us to recognize the role we all must play in our civic duties. And I think, to echo the words of Samantha, I think that's something we've all learned through this. I've had many people come to me and say, how did we get here? Or how did this happen? And a lot of times I've said, I don't necessarily know how we got here, but I know we have to make sure we don't return. And I think that's the better question. And the bigger question for all of us moving forward is how do we make sure that the decisions we make as a local government don't get to the place where they were again. Ralph Waldo Emerson came across the statement the other day. He said he wrote, December is the time for remembering the past and reaching toward the future. And as I read that, and just with everything that's been going on in these past few weeks, it just really caused me to take pause and really to think that we have to not forget what has happened here, and we have to make sure we're working collectively together moving forward. I call on you as our city councilors. I've learned through this process that there is a big division between what the school committee can do, what the city council can do. But I do urge you in your roles for the overall city to keep in mind that when we are voting on increasing development in the city, when we are making decisions for our community that invite people to join us and increase the population or market our city as a commuter city or proudly make our city a place that is welcoming and inviting to all, that we also remember that those families and those commuters and those people that are coming to our city because it is great, like myself. I mean, I'm a 20-year resident of Beverly, but this is not my hometown. But we have to remember that all of these decisions we are making in regard to the growth of our city also cause impact and growth in our schools. And for every time we increase buildings or condos or things I don't even necessarily know about, because my expertise is education right now, not our city government. But we have to remember that increasing populations of people living in Beverly also increases the needs of our school. And we can't necessarily think that they operate separate from each other, even if the roles we play do reflect on that. So thank you all, and especially, if I haven't said it yet, thank you to the outpouring of support from the community. It didn't go unnoticed, and I am very appreciative of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. The next speaker signed up is Travis Schultz. Is Travis here? I actually think he may have been earlier, maybe had to step out. So we'll go to Sarah Bartley, who is our fourth speaker signed up. And Ms. Bartley, if you also begin with your name and address for the record, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
Thanks. Sarah Bartley, 10 Kittredge Street. Sharing on a theme, I wanted to also keep my slot to say thank you, Council, for last Monday's refreshing discussion. I want to thank you for centering it on Beverly and adding context to public discussion, for clarifying your role and your desire to be collaborative partners in stewarding our collective resources. So first, thank you. Second, I wanted to just publicly thank Beverly Children's Learning Center, who opened their doors during this strike for full-day care. Their staff did it at personal and organizational cost, and I hope you'll join me and my family in thanking them. I know they're not the only ones. My other child and his friends availed themselves of the hospitality of the library, which I don't know how it went, I assume well, and just thank you to our librarians. Like a lot of Beverly, I followed updates from the school committee and the BTA over email and social media. I read the comments. I talked with BMS and BHS students who are part of my life, some of them reveling in the break, and others whose break away from school was actually really difficult. And as the strike wore on, they, like you, shared frustration with what seemed to be a growing gap in communication between sides. One teen told me that she had lost faith in the adults to resolve an issue that was so basic to her life. Perhaps this is part of growing up. I don't share it to blame or to minimize complexity, but simply to say that our young people want us to collaborate and solve problems, to listen to each other, and that's the kind of adult I want to be for them. At some point, it did feel to me as if the discussion was no longer about them or about Beverly. And I just wanted to use this space to say that perhaps was the hardest part for me. I know both teachers and school committee members are really deeply committed to this community and to our young people, and I know that it's possible to steward our resources well, to pay educators and staff fairly, and to remain focused on students in the process. So one idea to offer, as a planning board member, I remember during our last master plan process, we had an activity where we gave people a blank city block and we let them balance density and height with the community benefits like affordability and sustainability. And more than 4 years later, people still regularly come up to me and say that was the most engaging and educational interaction they had had with their city ever, with city government. So I share this to say that I think it's really possible for us to have more collaborative, productive dialogue between the city and its residents. Community members are hungry for context, as we've heard tonight. But we need structures to support building understanding for how governance works and to enfranchise more people in it. Imagine how the last month might be different if more people had insight into the decisions being made, the short and long-term impacts. Imagine how, I will wrap up, it would be different if more people understood the complexity of teachers' jobs, because I actually know that our schools can't solve for all the problems that teachers raised on their own, and they can't do it sustainably. Our schools are not emergency rooms. They need the community resources, the community organizations, it's housing, it's access to preventative care and healthy food that actually allow our students to show up and our schools to succeed. So all that to say, my remarks were just to say thank you and to encourage a more collaborative process that allows more people to be part of making our schools great. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Bartley. I should have mentioned at the beginning, just especially for those following at home, I know some of the speakers tonight, as they mentioned, have been here, have been participating, but this is a portion of our agenda where folks can come and speak to the council, but it's not a back and forth. You heard the presentation, there was some time for questions. This is slightly different. So you won't hear the councilors respond to the speakers, but as I always say, it doesn't mean that we're not listening carefully and attentively, and it informs our future conversation and our work as counselors. So thank you all for being here. And Ms. Bartley, I know you have two younger friends with you, and so thank you also, Silas and Micah, for being with us tonight too. For all those who are here, presenters, speakers, you are welcome to stay with us for as long as you'd like. You're also free to leave at any point that you want. Feel free to get up and move as you need to. I do want to mention the two public hearings that we did not take at their posted times. The first is postponed. It's public hearing on Order 296. It's postponed until our next regular meeting on December 16th. It will be at 7:20 p.m. at that meeting, which was the same time it was posted for this evening. And our budget analyst, Mr. Perry, is here. Mr. Perry, I wondered if you wanted to just say a few words to provide some context to the process with this hearing.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. To explain why the cancellations occur, a lot of this, if not all of this, had to do with me. What occurred was a couple of things, as the councilors know, but for the public in general, we have to adhere to the open meeting laws. And during the course of the open meeting laws, we have to establish agendas and make sure we adhere to that. The city clerk who sets the whole thing up, she has her deadlines correctly, but I may add, to make sure the agendas are met. With the vacation, with the holiday last week, her deadline was 2 p.m. on Tuesday last week. So around 11 o'clock, I reached out to the council president, and I raised my concern as your budget analyst that we had some budgetary matters that had to be resolved the following Monday. The salaries for elected officials, as well as the librarian, and as well as I had received at that point, we had we have an agreement with the Public Works Department. So there were several budgetary matters that were going on. My concern as your budget analyst at that point in time, as we all know, the school contract had not been settled then. And I was extremely concerned from a budgetary perspective that I didn't have all the information necessary to render an appropriate recommendation tonight, because the impact of the collective bargaining associated with the schools is a huge impact on the entire budgetary process. So I originally asked to postpone it indefinitely. The council president beat me up a little bit on that one and was pretty adamant that we try to at least get these other collective bargaining agreements done before Christmas. And so we kind of talked it through, and long story short, the conclusion was to do this on the 16th. So I believe we have 3 public hearings, I think we'll have that night, Madam President. It will be, hopefully you'll agree upon that tonight, both elected salaries, the library, and the public works. So it was for budgetary reasons. We don't want to rush into decisions, at least from my perspective, on appropriations and/or transfers without having the full picture of what the budget looks like. We now have thankfully, and I agree with all the speakers who got up, we have a contract. I did speak with the finance director who's with us tonight. I hope to have that contract in the next day or so. I will analyze that properly, so when we come back in 2 weeks from tonight, I can render an appropriate decision with regard to all these other matters. So that is the reason, Madam President, and to the public, why I have requested the cancellation of these for 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. So just for members of the public following along, sorry, you're welcome to sit if you want.
Thank you.
Or you can stay.
I didn't know if I was going to get questions.
If there are, we'll call you back up. So this first public hearing that Mr. Perry was talking about, Order 296, this is a budget transfer request of $36,112 into the Library Department budget to fund costs associated with recently agreed upon memorandum of agreement between the City of Beverly and Library Employees Chapter of the AFL-CIO Union. So that will be happening on December 16th at 7:20 p.m. And it's a public hearing. Members of the public are, of course, invited to come and sign up to speak. The other public hearing scheduled for 7:30 was on Order 280A. That's proposed order amending Beverly Ordinances Section 2614, salary and expenses of city council members, and Section 6912, unclassified salaries, mayor and school committee. I'm going to refer Order 280A back to the Committee on Finance and Property this evening for further decision about progress there. So we now have some time before our 8:15 public hearing. That's on Order 305. That has to do with fiscal year 2025 tax levy percentages. If there are members of the public who are here and wish to speak in that public hearing or watching on BevCam and planning to come down closer to that time, you can sign up. There's a sign-up sheet on the table over by the window, and you can add your name to that to speak on the matter of the fiscal year 2025 tax levy percentages, and we'll take those speakers in the order they are signed up. We'll take some of our routine business now, and we'll move through our agenda. So we'll go first to acceptance of minutes of previous meetings. I'm going to take this as two different votes. One, to cover the regular and standing Finance and Property Committee meeting. So that's the regular City Council meeting, October 21st, 2024, and our Finance and Property Committee meeting, October 28th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those two sets of minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. That carries 9-0, and those are approved. And the other vote is on the special City Council meeting minutes from November 25th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. So carries 7-0, 2 abstentions. Thank you. Let's go, Ms. Kent, to communications from His Honor the Mayor, please.
Order number 327, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Appointee Emily Hutchings to serve on the Historic District Commission. Effective April 1st, 2027. To see the attached statement of interest, I respectfully request your review this appointment in accordance with the Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointee Mario Tricomi to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission, term effective December 31st, 2027. I respectfully request your review of this appointment in accordance with the section of 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 329, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, appointee John Willett to serve on the Design Review Board, effective December 1st, 2027. I respectfully request this review to appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 330, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointee William Loud of the Parks and Recreation Commission, effective December 31st, 2027. I respectfully request your review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 331, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, an appointee of Justin Rep to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission, effective 12/31/27. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 332, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, appointee Nancy Marino to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission, effective to December 31st, 2027. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 333, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, appointment Justin Jordan to serve on the Board of Health, effective 12/31/2027. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 334, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointee Richard Scanlon to serve on the Board of Assessors, term effective 12/31/27. Mr. Scanlon is a highly regarded assessor and extremely knowledgeable in the field. I respectfully request a waiver of residence requirement. I request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order 335. Mayor Michael Cahill, notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointed J. David Sumininsky to serve on the Harbor Management Authority till 12/31/27. He is a longtime member and valuable contributor to the board. I respectfully request a waiver of residency requirement. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 337, Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, appointee Todd Callahan to serve on the Harbor Management Authority, effective 12/31/27. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services. And I just want to mention, Order 336, Ms. Kent did not read because it's been withdrawn.
Order 338, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointed Joshua Doxey to be served on the Beverly Airport Commission, term effective 12/31/27. I respectfully request the review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order 339, Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointee George Gomes to serve on the Beverly Planning Board, effective 12/31/27. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order 340, Mayor Michael Cahill, notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointee Sarah Bartley to serve on the Beverly Planning Board, effective 12/31/27. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order 341. Mayor Michael Cahill's notice of appointment to city office under City Charter, Section 3-3. Honorable City Council, name of appointee Derek Beckwith to serve on the Beverly Planning Board for term effective 12/31/27. I respectfully request you review this appointment in accordance with Section 2-10 of the City Charter. Thank you for your consideration.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 342, dear Honorable City Council, I respectfully request that you approve a budget transfer of $98,600 into the Department of Public Services General Fund budget to fund costs associated with the recently settled contracts between the City of Beverly and the DPS workers and foreman unions. The terms of the contracts over the periods of FY 2025 through FY 2027 As such, this requested transfer will be allocated to pay some retroactive pay adjustments as well as the increased costs of the remainder of FY '25. The memorandum of agreements are being provided to you as an attachment in this correspondence. The full amount will be transferred from the reserve for collective bargaining 11324 57810 to cover these costs. These are sufficient funds available within this reserve account to support this transfer. I will also take this opportunity to thank the union representatives as well as all the employees covered within this agreement for bargaining in good faith and engaging with the negotiating team in meaningful discussion to arrive at these agreements. I know I speak for many of you when I say that we truly value what you bring to our community and understand the important role you play in our community's greatness. It is much appreciated. I ask that the City Council initiate action on this matter at your next meeting scheduled for Monday, December 2nd. This transfer request requires a public hearing to be set and held prior to a council vote. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property to set that public hearing. Let's go to communications from other city officers and boards, please.
Order number 343 from the CPC, out of cycle funding recommendation request for additional CPA funding for Independence Park 400+, Lynch Park, and Girdler House.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property to set a public hearing.
Order number 344 from Councilor Bowen, the South Essex Sewage District presentation.
Councilor Bowen, any comments on that?
No, just that it was great to be able to ask questions, and the team there are welcoming of any questions folks might have after looking through that presentation.
Thank you very much, Councilor. I would entertain a motion then to receive that and place it on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 9-0.
Order 345, the Department of Environmental Protection Waterways Regulation Program, notice of license application.
Oh, did we miss 346?
This is 345. That comes before 346.
I know, but that's under communications, applications, and petitions.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
No. Order 346, the committee, let's see. Thrown off. Sorry, Colleen Laughlin, Executive Director, Beverly Retirement System Annual Expense Budget.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 9-0.
Order 345, Department of Environmental Protection, Notice of License.
I entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 9-0. Before we break for committee, we actually can go to, we have one piece of unfinished business from a previous meeting. This is Order 297, which is an appointment for Christian Heath, 5 South Hardy Street, to the Historic District Commission. This was voted out of legal affairs, but because it's an appointment from the mayor, we needed to wait longer to officially approve due to the rule in our city charter. So I would entertain a motion now to approve Order 297 to approve this appointment. All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 9-0. With our thanks to Christian Heath for being willing to serve on the Historic District Commission as well. I would entertain a motion to take a break for some committee work, and just noting for subcommittee chairs that we do have an 8:15 posted public hearing, so we'll need to be back and ready to go for that time. So entertain a motion to take that break. All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 9-0. Let's have public services in the committee room, legal affairs on the bench, finance and property stay here.
Call to order the Committee on Finance and Property. Okay, colleagues, I think we have two orders I want to take up tonight. First is Order 342, which just recently referred to us tonight. This is the budget transfer of $98,600 to the Department of Public Services to cover costs associated with a couple recently settled contracts with DPS workers and the foremen's unions. So we, tonight, really just need to set the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing on this order on December 16th at 7:40 PM.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. That is approved 3-0. Okay, move on to order 343. This was also referred to us tonight. This is the Community Preservation Committee's out-of-cycle funding recommendation for a couple projects related to, looks like, Beverly 400 plus. Is there anyone here to talk about that? Do you have any info, Mr. Ailes or Mr. Perry? Okay, either way, I think we're just setting a public hearing on that one tonight as well for December 16th at 8 o'clock. I would entertain a motion to set that public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. That is also approved 3-0. Okay. I don't think I have anything else for us to take up tonight. Councilor Sweeney?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Do we need to take action on Order 280A? I know that we're up against a timeline for the end of the calendar year, if I'm correct, to take any action one way or the other?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Perry, what are our options here?
The public hearing on the elected salaries, I did have a conversation with the city solicitor this evening. You have to make some decisions, obviously, you could conceivably tonight take my report, place it in a file, and that's the end of it. That's one option. Option two would be have a public hearing next week on the matter. If you have a public hearing on the meeting and the city this committee and the city council wishes to take some sort of action or modify it, in whatever way you want, it will require a second vote to do this because it's a change of the city ordinances. You need 2 votes. In discussions with the solicitor tonight, she's going to get back to me in a few days. I was trying to work, the council president and I had a brief conversation about this today. It may be possible to do 2 votes in one night if that's your wish. You certainly can come back a week later during the Christmas vacation if that's of interest to you. I don't know if it is or not, but we're trying to find some solution to avoid that Christmas week meeting if you want, or another option that the solicitor brought maybe a few days afterwards. We could even do a Zoom meeting and do it that way. So trying to find out what options are available to you. I don't know what direction you all want to go with that specific order that you have, but these are options that I've been exploring and trying to resolve for you. So the question begs is, do you want to do public hearing 2 weeks from tonight on this? So if that's, it's really your choice as to how you want to proceed.
And if we take no action tonight, that effectively kills it.
If you take no action tonight and you do not post a public hearing next on the 16th, it would be, my opinion, it would probably be dead. Yes, it'd be that old-fashioned pocket veto thing, yes.
Yeah, okay. I guess, colleagues, my recommendation at this point would be to receive and place on file. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I do, but I see Councilor Sweeney's hand first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would disagree with that approach. I think we need to hold a public hearing. I don't think I will be voting in favor of everything that Mr. Perry recommended. But that being said, this is something for all the elected official salaries, we wouldn't be able to take any action on them if we don't act on it now for essentially another 2-year period for city council and school committee and a 4-year period for the mayor. It may be the wish of the city council to leave the salaries as they are with no adjustments throughout the duration of the terms for those positions, which certainly is an acceptable approach, but I would think that we should see the process through, which would mean holding a public hearing and ultimately taking some sort of vote as a council. So I'd say, I think we should set the public hearing and then work within whatever guidance we get from the solicitor to try to schedule a second meeting or take 2 votes, whatever it might be, to conclude action on this matter before the end of the calendar year.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Sweeney. Madam President?
I definitely hear and understand that perspective, and certainly Mr. Perry and I have talked about that perspective as well. I think, and I can see the logic to it and the logical end there. My personal feeling is more similar to yours, Mr. Chairman. I think despite understanding and seeing the logic, my view is that the moment that the city finds itself in, I don't feel that we're in the right climate to be able to have that kind of a conversation.
Okay, yeah, and I would also say in addition to that, Madam President, I've looked at the merit of it, and I just don't see a real need. So in that light, why go through that? So I guess I would accept a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, receive and place on file 2-1, so that'll go back to the full council for vote tonight. I think that concludes our business. Any other business in finance and property? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Committee on Finance and Property.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I will call the full council back to order. Thank you, subcommittee chairs, for that efficient work during that time. We do have a few moments before our posted public hearing that's posted for 8:15. And so I see that the mayor, Michael Cahill, has joined us. And so, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like a few moments to address the council before our hearing, invite you to the podium, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam President, and thank you, everybody. So good evening, hi to members of the City Council and to fellow Beverly residents. I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, and I want to thank you for making time for me to speak briefly this evening, just a few minutes before the public hearing, right? So tonight, we are all grateful that our children are back at school and have been since last Wednesday. I speak to you tonight as your mayor to share with you some information about the teachers and paraprofessionals contract settlement, recognizing that the city's annual financial forecasting process is underway, and soon the city budget process for next fiscal year will kick off. In August, long before the strike began, the school committee offered our teachers and paraprofessionals the largest three-year contract in our city's history. And last summer's historic offer was made possible because the school committee listened intently to our educators, agreed with them on the need for significant pay increases, and came forward with one voice last June during budget deliberations. Then you, our colleagues on the City Council, agreed, and you voted to appropriate the largest one-year increase in funding for our schools in city history, $5.6 million. Last Tuesday evening, we settled contracts with the Beverly Teachers Association that will position our educators among the highest paid in our region, while costing the city roughly $60,000 more than the offer we had made to the BTA in August. This is a strong and a responsible agreement that invests heavily in our educators while keeping our city on solid financial footing so that we can continue to provide the essential services on which the people of Beverly depend. Remaining issues, including paid leave, educator prep time, and length of teacher workday and student school day, could and would have been bargained and settled while our children's education continued uninterrupted. My school committee colleagues and I care deeply about our children and their education, and we respect and value our educators. We work hard throughout each year to help our dedicated school leadership team and all our educators deliver an outstanding education for our children. Throughout every step of this past year's contract negotiations and the teachers' strike, we did our very best to respond to our educators' concerns and requests and to reach agreements while maintaining and improving both our schools and our whole community. My school committee colleagues and I, and our school leadership, do the work we do entirely because we want the very best for our Beverly Public Schools, for our children, and for our educators. The most important thing today is that our children are back in school, learning and growing. There is important work ahead. As your mayor, I took an oath of office to serve all the people of Beverly, and this oath guides my work every day, just as it did at all times these past months. The strike was divisive. The best we can do now is extend each other grace and compassion, recognize the humanity in each other, and together build stronger schools and a healthier community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, Mr. Mayor, are you open to take questions if there are any from the councilors? We have a few minutes. Members of the council, if you have questions or comments, I'd be happy to entertain those. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also was remiss earlier in not recognizing a few members of our city staff who are also here with us this evening, and so I'd like to do that now. Our city solicitor, Stephanie Williams, is here with us this evening. Thank you, solicitor. Of course, our city council budget analyst, Mr. Perry. Folks know that he was here. He got up and spoke earlier. Thank you, Mr. Perry, for being here with us. Brian Ailes, our city finance director, is here with us as well this evening. Thank you for being here. Frank Golden, chair of our board of assessors, is here, and other members of our Assessors Board as well will be with us this evening for our public hearing. And thank you all for joining us during the evening and for this meeting. I would entertain a motion to take just a 2-minute recess. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll be back in 2.
Probably could have burned through these.
Thank you, everyone. I'll call the council back to order after that brief recess to pick up with our public hearing posted on Order 305. This is posted for 8:15 p.m. Ms. Kent.
Order 305, City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, December 2nd, 2024, at 8:15 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers. Live stream on BevCam relative to the allegation of fiscal year 2025 tax levy percentages among the 4 classes of real and personal property in consideration of the adoption of open space, residential, and small business exemptions. And this was published in the newspaper on November 22nd.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. As I mentioned, we do have the chair of our Board of Assessors, Mr. Golden, here with us, and I see you're at the podium and ready to begin. So, Mr. Golden, I'll turn the floor over to you. Thank you.
Madam President, through you, Frank Golden, Chairman of the Board of Assessors, Honorable Council, City of Beverly. The Board of Assessors for the city has determined the total valuation for all properties in fiscal year 2025. the percentage of value which falls into each of these residential categories, residential, commercial, industrial, personal property, in the classes, and how they're set in the classes. The residential is 87.9% before we split the rate. Open space is 0.008. Commercial is 7.17. Industrial, 2.22. And personal property, 2.67 for 100% of taxable value. A single tax rate, which when applied evenly over all classes, would produce revenue equal to the fiscal year 25 tax levy, when still preserving $727,040 in excess levy capacity. It's important that the public and the council understands that the tax levy of $129,833,221 divided by the total value of taxable property, $10,596,884,870 equals 0.01225. So if we had one single rate, that would be our tax rate, $12.25 for everyone. There's two items before you tonight, item 1 and item 2. It's the residential and small commercial exemption. Although never granted to date in Beverly, they are permissible. These exemptions, however, must first be recommended by the mayor and then approved by council. Classification, on the other hand, which is when we vote the minimum residential factor, which is the 4th number on the item, needs to be, it's initiated by the council and then approved by the mayor. The mayor has chosen not to recommend either residential or small commercial exemption. The third exemption before you tonight is a 25% adopted, 25% exemption adopted by a vote of the council for all property that is classified as open space. Historically, open space exemptions have never been granted in Beverly, and with only one property classified, the issue is moot. The Board of Assessors recommends that no one space discount be granted. Item 4, which is the most important item of the night that's before you, at your discretion, the City Council may, under prescribed circumstances and with the approval of the mayor, choose to classify or shift a portion of the tax burden for the residential class upon the commercial, industrial, personal property classes. The max shift allowable in Beverly is 1.75%. The attached schedule on page 3 shows 170 to 175. It's important that, well, what does that exactly mean? It means in tax dollars, we can shift $11.7 million from the residential onto the commercial. That's estimated, it is a little more, but a 1.75 shift would allow us to move that burden. Fiscal year 25 total valuations for all property has been approved by the DOR. These values and these percentages are set through rigorous bars on singles, 2 families, condos, multifamilies, apartments. It actually goes on for about a 30-day period from mid-October to early November where the assessors go through this procedure. The total residential and open space really drives the value in the city. A total of $9,317,128,275 is the value of the residential in the open space. The total commercial, industrial, and personal property plays a much smaller role, but is $1,279,756,595. So together, that's how we arrive at the $10,596,884,870. It's important that before we shift, the open space and the residential is 87.923. As I said in the beginning of the presentation, the SIP before shifting is 12.0767. After shifting, the residential and the open space goes to 78.8658. This is where the minimum residential factor comes from. If you divide the 78.8658 by the original residential percentage of 87.9, you get a minimum residential factor of 89.6984. That is the expression for the 1.75 shift that allows us to move the 11.7 million from the res to the commercial. That's what you're voting tonight. A few things that I wanted to share with council. Changes in value in the community. The 101 class, our single-family homes, increased 398,990,700. That is a very healthy number no matter where you are. The number of sales that occurred in the single family, maybe this is surprising, maybe it's not. We had 184 arm's length transactions in the city in calendar year 23. I expect this to happen again. I expect to stand before you next year and have a very similar situation. Same tax increase to the median, same tax increase to the average. Other uses that are healthy, condos, 66,090,300. Apartments, 46,720,600. They're 1, 2, and 3. Our fourth is our two families. They increased 32 million. Our commercial is fifth at 28 million. The residential is outgrowing annually the commercial. That's why we're shifting as much as we possibly can at 1.75. If the commercial base could grow some more, it would help us shift more. But unfortunately, the residential's outgrowing the commercial. And that's the predicament we're in. It's been this way for a long time. 4 years in a row, we've shifted at 1.75. I would expect to be before you in a year and be putting the same kind of situation, same kind of increases, because I looked at the first half of 24 and it was telling me that. So other areas of strong sales, arm's length transactions, condos, we had 83 arm's length transactions, two families, 16, three families, 8. When we don't have 2% of the use sell, we have to go to a second year. So in 23, you would now bring in 22 sales. And 22 sales are clean because the year prior, we cleaned them and met the DOR standard. So it's nice that we have enough in the 101s, being the single families and the condos. The 2s and the 3s are doing their job, but they're right on that borderline where we don't have enough and we have to go to the second year. New growth, the leader, and over 50% of our new growth is coming from our utilities. New England Power, Mass Electric, Boston Gas. This year it was 725,354. We had 1.5 million in new growth. The residential, 692,000. That's the second largest component. Our commercial, 97,000, almost 100,000 in new growth for commercial. But again, those 504s are local utilities because what's going on with the improvement of the power lines and everything else in the city. They share, it's over 50%, I said, of the new growth. And that's healthy, and that's gonna continue for a few more fiscal years anyway. Any questions on anything that jumped out at you when you reviewed the packet over the weekend? Or I'd be glad to answer questions. But.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Feldman.
Thank you. I just had one clarification, just in case people are listening, because I did say this a lot over the last couple of weeks in terms of explaining property taxes. And so from this data, it's clear that you're saying 89% of the revenue in our taxes are from residential property taxes, correct?
Correct.
Is that about, okay.
Prior to the shift, yes.
All right. So my question is, on the first page of the memo, you had said that while still preserving 727,040 in excess levy capacity. Of that, is that primarily, are we talking about strictly residential, the tax the levy capacity, we did not raising it to 2.5% the last 2 years. Is that the all residential, or is there a part of that that's commercial, or what is that number comprised of?
Well, Madam President, through you, the difficulty that we're facing is we can't capture that by raising a penny in either of the residential rates, whether it be residential or commercial. When you hit the recap adjustment button, it'll tell you what the excess levy capacity is, and this is a little hard for people to understand, but we can't fit 1 more cent into either tax rate to capture that amount of money. And believe me, if we wanted to, we could. Not going to 2.5, did that have something to do with it? Quite possibly, yes. However, I spoke with Mr. Perry earlier tonight, and we're confident that we'll capture all of that next year. Say it's 1.5 million. We're certainly getting that penny within that to capture that amount of money. I take great pride in having nothing on the table and taxing to the amount of money that we need to spend in the right areas. We just can't get there, unfortunately, because of the values. It's not anything else. The residential class and the commercial class, by adding a penny, we can't capture that. The number's greater. And we have to have a balanced budget.
Right.
Believe it or not, the recap has to be less than $5. So it's hard. You leave a certain amount on the table when you close after this tonight. When we go down, that's the minimum residential factor. You're stuck. It's not like we can't recapture it down the road, but I'm hopeful next year they'll be a lot closer to zero. Sure.
Mr. Rios, please.
Because I
Thank
heard
you, Mr. Rios.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I heard a question in there about the proportion of the excess levy capacity that is borne by the residential versus the CIP, we call it the SIP. It would be proportional to what the valuations are for the entire property valuations in the city. So it would be close to that 80% of the excess levy capacity would be borne by the residents, and the remainder would be borne by the SIP. Now, with the 700+ thousand that still remains as uncaptured levy, it had always been the city's intent, as we worked through the collective bargaining process recently, and we shared this all with you during the budget process, that it's a multi-year phased-in approach that we would be employing in order to fund what we anticipated at that time to be the needs for the contracts related to all the collective bargaining agreements in the city that we're, there's still a few more outstanding, but we're wrapping up most of them now. So that will go away next year, and it will be borne proportionally by the different sectors.
Okay.
Yep.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Feldman. Councillor St. Hilaire.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess I just had a follow-up to that. So setting the excess levy capacity was a discussion during our budget, and this is obviously a lagging exercise to the budget process. What if we didn't tap the excess levy capacity? What would we be doing tonight? Would that be different? How would that be different?
Madam President, through you, nothing would be different. It's very straightforward what's left over from what
Would the rate be different?
I can't add a cent to capture.
So why did we need to tap the excess levy capacity?
Mr. Rios, thank you.
We're tag teaming here. The process tonight is to set the tax rate to pay for the budget you all approved 6 months ago, right? So if you had approved a budget that was less, it's potentially we would have additional excess levy capacity at that point. But basically, you're just passing the shift between the residential sectors to raise enough money to pay for what you guys have already approved, or you all have
So if the
already.
budget was less, the tax rate would be less?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. The question I was planning to ask sort of builds on that same one, so I'm not sure if it's to our assessors or to our finance director. But similarly, so the process that we go through every year is that the budget is set with some anticipation of revenues, and we approve the set of expenditures that those revenues are intended to cover. we are reminded every year that we're not voting on the revenues themselves. They are the map of how we think we're going to pay for everything. And then at this time of year, we confirm how much of that total set of revenues we need to meet the expenditures we've already approved will come from property taxes. And the role that we play in that is really just to say, of that number that has been fixed, how much are residential property owners versus commercial, industrial, and private property taxes gonna cover? And so there is some shifting around in the 6 months between when we pass the budget of expenditures and when we confirm the taxes that we're going to be actually collecting in that fiscal year to pay for those expenditures. Some of those shifts that can happen are we get more information about new growth, which allows us to collect new taxes above maybe what we had estimated our levy would be. We might also get more information about how other types of revenues are coming in. Maybe there's more coming in fees or something, lots of parking tickets. Most things don't change very much in the budget because so much of our budget is funded by this number, the levy of $129,833,221 total. So the process of dividing up that number is what happens now, but also confirming that number is what happens now. And we submit that to the state and they say, yes, it does look like you can pay for all those expenditures that you committed to. So my question was really, over the last 6 months, which things may have shifted around that allowed us to go from an estimate in the budget that we approved that we anticipated, okay, our levy limit is here, it's 130 million or so. We're only gonna tax, I think it was 129,300,000 in the estimate. Now we're taxing a little bit more, a little closer to our levy limit, but still leaving some money that we legally could collect under the limits of Prop 2.5 and state laws, but have decided are not necessary because other revenues are there. So mostly just curious, like what else has shifted in that time, knowing that throughout the year, we're working with the best information that we have and it keeps changing.
Yeah, so as you know, aside from state aid and tax levy, the next largest revenue source in the city is motor vehicles, and we don't get that data till February, right? The majority of the motor vehicle bills go out the beginning of the year, so we don't make any adjustments to those assumptions prematurely before we set the tax rate. The largest data point that we get from the time we set the budget to the time today is around new growth, right? Because that's a big assumption that we build in there. We built in the budget a 1.25 million estimated new growth figure, and Mr. Golden mentioned it came in at 1.5. So that conceivably is an extra $250,000 that becomes available for the city. It's still tax revenue. What also happened at roughly the same time as Mr. Golden and his colleagues on the Board of Assessors did come to conclusion on some outstanding large liability abatements. And so those, I don't know if they're officially settled, but they're close to it. So the overlay was drawn down, and meanwhile, we're putting an additional $250,000 more back into the overlay than was in the original budget assumption. So the net tax revenue that we used to fund operations is consistent with what was in the original budget back in June.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Ailes. Counselor Spang, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to check a couple things for clarification. So for homeowners seeing their property tax bill going up greater than the 2.5%, if they've heard that figure floating around, my understanding is that that's driven by the valuations on the properties. Is that through you correct?
Madam Chair, through you, yes. If you had an improvement to your home, whether it be an addition, two-car garage, high-end, whatever it may be, that new growth is your tax bill increase, no one else's. Lots of uses increase over 2% in a given year. The 2.5%, that's a very common error by the taxpayer. They think that they're capped at 2.5. The 2.5 is actually the 2.5% that the levy can grow. That has nothing to do with what's particularly happening in your neighborhood for colonials or whatever your use may be throughout the city. The 101, the single-family homes are so healthy, and we have so many arm's-length transactions that I feel we're as accurate as anybody on how we treat the values of our single-family properties.
And if I may, that was my follow-up question. People have asked how often properties are reassessed. It sounds like you do that just about every year. And for some people, they may have had improvements to the house, and for other people, maybe their house has stayed the same, but values are going up in their neighborhood. It sounds like all of that is kind of at play at once.
Madam Chair, through you, the old Department of Revenue local assessment was every 3 years. We'd do a reval. It's now 5, and I believe that's because of staff reductions there. But I do a reval every year, and I do the single-family homes. And it's funny. I was taught that you want to have an assessment sales ratio of 95 for all your neighborhoods. Here, because of the strength of our 101 market, I try to pride myself on a 93 because I know where it's going, and I try to keep those extra dollars out of everyone's bill to the best of my ability. I just think it's fair assessing when you know the single families are driving our value.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just have one more, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Counselor, thank you.
My last question is about the shift. So you guys have talked a lot about how we can shift up to 1.75% from CIP, which is commercial, industrial, and personal property, to residential. Or I don't know which way it goes, but my understanding of it is that that then shifts part of the tax burden, the most that we can under state law, off of homeowners and onto commercial, industrial, and personal property, because the city's recognizing that the values of homes are going up quite dramatically more than the values of commercial, industrial, and personal property. So is that correct in like a layman's explanation?
That's correct, Madam Chair, through you. I mean, Madam President, the thing that you need to understand, if you take 1225, which is our rate for everybody if it was single, and you multiply that by 1.75, you get the commercial rate of 2144. The commercial, industrial, personal property can only grow 1.75%. So you're capped, you're locked. When we approve this minimum residential factor, the best we can do is 11.7 million from the res to the SIP, which is commercial, industrial, personal property. So it's locked when we vote this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Golden. Counselor Rotundo, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Golden, just for the fact for the residents who are watching, an abatement process, if a person feels that they've been unfairly evaluated, when does the taxpayer have the right to appeal to the Board of Assessors in order for them to possibly seek an abatement?
January 1st to February 1st, but it'll move a day if it falls on a Saturday or a Sunday. So it's a mass state law to have it on the street prior to the 1st. We like to get it there, give everyone 30 days, but the process is we need to get in the property. I stress that. There'll be no decision if we cannot inspect the property.
One more question, Madam President. Thank you. Mr. Golden, if someone is looking to seek this, they just go to your office to get an application. Can they get that online, do you know?
Yes, the application's available online, and you can mail it as long as it's within that time period. Just be careful that you get it to us timely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Houseman.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Golden, thank you for your work. I just want to clarify, if anyone is watching, about the 1.75 and the shift that is made. You said it's capped at that amount. That cap, or that sort of a maximum amount that we can shift, is determined by state law, is that correct?
Yes, it is. And then the ceiling is controlled by the value of the commercial, industrial, personal property. So it can only grow 1.75 upon itself. I think that it's important that the council, every community I've worked in, that they know exactly what that dollar amount is. The larger your commercial, industrial, personal property value, the greater the burden you can shift from the residential to the commercial. Unfortunately, we have a very high residential percentage, and it kind of limits what we can do.
Sure. I guess the point I'm trying to clarify for a resident is, who looks at their tax bill, is that it's not like we could choose to shift more than 1.75. That is the cap that we are, which we cannot exceed based upon accounting principles and state law, correct?
Madam President, through you, correct. Mayor Wu in Boston is trying to increase it as we speak. It's many communities are concerned, and they'd like to go to 190. This happened years ago, and they had to walk everybody back, and it was, 175 to 190 would just be a temporary Band-Aid, and you'd have to walk everybody back to 1.75, and she's having a real difficult time getting it through. So my feeling is 175 is the best we can do, and anything less would be more in tax dollars for our residents. More would be relief, but it would have to walk back, and it'd be ultimately in the same place down the road whenever they ask you to walk it back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions from members of the council at this time? Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. I guess it's more just sort of a comment to recap. One of the things that I found really helpful as well in the materials prepared for us was capturing what the average or what the median average single family bill would be under this proposal, and what the median CIP bill would be, and sort of how you see that shift play out in reality. So I think hearing the total amount of our total tax levy that we're trying to collect, and how much of that goes from being, almost 90% of that total falling on residential taxpayers, to being more like 80% of the burden, and what that dollar amount is helpful. And knowing that the average single-family bill would go up about 4% from last year to this year, or like $300 some odd dollars, and the CIP tax bill median would go up about 13%, a little over 13%, or an increase of about $1,400. And understanding that our commercial and industrial property owners and the personal property that's taxed has had actual increases in dollar amounts in many cases over the last several years, or has been steady. And so it's a little bit of sort of capturing back as those valuations level back out, but also knowing that that may come as a sticker shock in January to the CIP taxpayers, just sort of recognizing that, and to me, and I think it's the strong recommendation from the assessors, from our financial analyst as well, that is what's fair, that is what can be borne best in the city, that's sort of the most strategic way to make sure we're collecting all of the tax dollars that we need. And just want to make sure we have those numbers sort of out there. Those are averages, each individual. I think the clarifications from Councilor Spang were really helpful, that each individual property is going to be a little bit different, but I think it's helpful for us to know where we're at with those. So thank you for providing those to us.
Thank you, Councilor.
Madam President, through you, you touched on an important point, Councilor, that I want to share with everyone. The median increase for the median commercial property, it's skewed by warehouse. We have 40 warehouses, 24 are in the 3 class, your 300 class, and 16 are in the 4 class. It's important that everyone understands that we had 3 very aggressive sales with those properties, which caused that use to really appreciate for fiscal year 25. If you remove the 32 that went up from the median, the rest of the group is looking at a median of $448,700. That would be a tax impact of $9,620, not $11,968, and that's a 9% decrease. So I think it's important that everyone understands that that median value, which hits a lot of our business folks on Cabot and Rantoul and so on, they're not experiencing what the median, and we always stay away from the average because the Cummings Center really inflates the average. But I think it's important that everyone knows that warehouse was overdue for an increase because we had 2 arm's length and one that we really couldn't explain, that got coded out because it was a leasehold, not a lease fee. But I don't want to get too technical, but I think it's good news for the business community that that is not reflective of what's really going on for our property downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Mr. Perry, our budget analyst, anything that you'd like to add at this point in the hearing?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be brief. Most of the stuff I was going to discuss has already been answered to you, so hopefully you're all set on that. Couple quick comments. I'm glad Councilor Rotundo raised that issue because I was going to do that. Yeah, the people in the city by state law can file for an abatement really due the month of January, as Mr. Golden's indicated. So I'm glad that you raised that issue. What hasn't been raised yet, it's important, and I say this every year when I come before you all, in order to get a successful tax rate, it allows the municipality to send out the 3rd and 4th quarter tax bills. If we do not get a successful tax rate, the city is not allowed by law to send that out, and it really causes a lot of cash flow problems. So that's why this process is occurring in this year. Tax rates are supposed to get done by the end of the calendar year, so that's why they're before you always this time of the year. So it's really important, as your budget analyst, I think, to approve something tonight. I wrote to you over the weekend. You have 2 actions to take tonight. One is to do the shift, as they've already indicated, 89.6984, which I recommend you do, and also you're not to adopt an open space exemption, which, quite frankly, you've historically done since I've been with you and even before I got here. So the bottom line to it, I can tell you that all the work that Mr. Golden and his assessors do is heavily reviewed at the Department of Revenue by the Bureau of Local Assessment, so it's not like he's coming up here. He gets scrutinized by them, he gets a little bit scrutinized by me, he gets a little scrutinized by Mr. Ailes, so it's quite a process if you understood it. It literally takes 7 or 8 months to get all this done. They do a good job. Mr. Golden has a great reputation, and with that said, Madam President, it is my recommendation you adopt these 2 proposals as suggested by the assessors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Councilors, any other questions at this point for Mr. Perry or anyone else? There are no public speakers, members of the public signed up to speak in this hearing, but are there members of the public here who wish to speak in this public hearing this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'll close this public hearing and I'll refer it back to the full council. We're here now. We've already had our subcommittee time. So councilors, as you just heard, there are 2 different votes that are part of this process. And so to be able to take up the first matter for any further discussion and then for a vote, I would entertain a motion to approve and to set the residential factor of 89.6984. Motion to approve. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. I was just going to say, sorry, Councilor Singh, I was about to turn back and say any opposed, thank you. That carries 8-1. And the second vote that we need to make tonight, and again, I entertain a motion to approve in a moment. This is a vote to not accept an open space exemption. So this is one of those votes where you're voting yes to say no. So is there a motion to not accept an open space exemption? Is there any further discussion on this one? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries 9-0. There is a document that we need to sign, so if the city clerk is sending this your way. I think anybody who voted to approve. Thank you very much, Mr. Golden.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll go to reports from committees. Ms. Kent.
Order number 318, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding an appointment for Lisa Chandler as city engineer to serve on the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Are there questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
That carries 9-0.
Order number 299, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a renewal application for a Class 2 motor vehicle license for H&H Holdings, 78 Cabot Street, LLC, Beverly Auto, Top and Upholstery, 78 Cabot Street, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the license be granted.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
That carries 9-0.
Order number 302, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding renewal application for a Class 2 motor vehicle license for Lion Gas and Auto Service, Inc., 44 Enon Street, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the license be granted.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Carries 9-0.
Order number 303, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a renewal application for a Class 2 motor vehicle license for Michael's Auto, 2 School Street, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the license be granted.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 317, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding an appointment for Kenneth Clausen, Assistant Planning Director, to serve on the Design Review Board, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
That carries 9-0. Thank you.
Order number 319, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom referred the matter regarding an appointment for Ally Hall, 310 Broughton Drive, to serve on the Conservation Commission, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Questions or comments on this one? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Carries 9-0.
Order number 342, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a budget transfer of $98,600 into the Department of Public Services General Fund budget to fund costs associated with the recently settled contracts between City of Beverly and DPS workers and foreman unions, have considered said matter and set a public hearing for December 6th at 7:40 p.m.
I would entertain a motion to set that public hearing as recommended by the subcommittee for our next regular meeting, December 16th, 7:40 p.m. All those in favor? That carries 9-0, and we'll set that public hearing for December 16th, 7:40 p.m.
Order number 343, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding an out-of-cycle funding recommendation request for additional CPA funding for Independence Park, 400+, Lynch Park, and Girdle House, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend they set a public hearing for December 16th at 8 p.m.
I would entertain a motion to set that public hearing as recommended by the subcommittee for our next regular meeting, December 16th, this one at 8:00 p.m.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries 9-0. We'll set that public hearing for December 16th, 8 p.m.
Order number 280A, the Committee on Finance and Property, whom refer the matter regarding Order 280A, proposed order amending Beverly ordinances, Section 26-14 and Ordinance Section 69-12, salary and expenses and unclassified salaries of city council members, mayor, and school committee members, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Receive and place on file.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Before I go to questions and comments, I know our city solicitor would like to be able to address the council.
Madam President, for recognizing me. I just wanted to mention to the council that if the way our charter and ordinances are written, action increasing the salary of any elected official has to take place in the term before the office is then taken after the next election. So any action now would not go into effect until January 2026. If you don't take action this term for beginning in 2026 for the school committee and the city council, that would mean the next opportunity for a raise wouldn't be until 2028. And then for the office of the mayor, that would mean that salary wouldn't increase until 2030. So just want to make sure everybody understands what the timing would be with respect to the next opportunity for taking this up.
Thank you very much, Solicitor Williams. So let's go to questions or comments from the council. Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. It will surprise no one that I would rather have a conversation about an item than place it on file. And I think this is an important one that's already generated a lot of interest in the community. I know people have asked me what I think about it. I would love to share that with all of you before we take any action on it. And receiving and placing on file is a choice and an action. So I would prefer not to do that tonight. It seems to me we have a few options. The idea of holding a public hearing, I find helpful. I always find it helpful to listen to what residents have to say. It's also not required for an ordinance change, from what I understand. Sometimes when we're making an ordinance change, it feels important enough that we invite a public hearing, but it's not one of the required public hearings, like something like a loan authorization where we are required to hold a public hearing. So personally, I would love to continue with the plan to have a public hearing, and I understand the timing of that would be challenging now. If there is not interest in that, then I would prefer that we keep this as an open item, posted on our next agenda for discussion among the council, and decide after discussion whether we want to act on it, amend it, vote it down, vote it up as recommended, as amended, or receive it and place it on file at that stage. So,
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions or comments? Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with Councilor Bowen. I voiced similar sentiments in our subcommittee meeting. To be abundantly clear, I did not or do not plan to vote in favor of Mr. Perry's recommendation exactly as it was presented to us. However, to the point Councilor Bowen made, I do feel pretty strongly, as she does, that I think we should have this discussion and take a vote, even if the will of the council is ultimately not to make any changes. And for that reason, I voted against recommending this, and I plan to vote against receiving and placing it on file. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Sweeney. Counselor St. Hilaire.
So I, have an alternative point of view here. I think we just went through a process where we heard loud and clear concerns about our budgetary priorities. I, for one, have zero interest in talking about raising our own salaries or that of the mayor. I've looked at the analysis from Mr. Perry. I don't see a merit for doing it. I also recall a time on the council where we didn't have this ordinance in place. I don't think it's a great thing for us to be revisiting our salary every 2 years, and I don't think it was good timing that this popped up, when it did. I don't know what our options are in terms of rescinding this. Is this in the charter now, Ms. Williams? Is that what I understand?
Thank you, Solicitor.
You're welcome. That language is in an ordinance, so that could be amended. And the history behind that, if I may elaborate, is I believe, was it 2 years ago, there was an increase to school committee, city council, and mayoral salaries. And city council in particular salary had not been raised for something like 10, 15 years, something along those lines, and 26 years. In part because elected officials understandably are in the awkward position of feeling as though they're voting to give themselves a raise, when in fact, that's not actually the case. You're voting on the salary for the office of city councilor, school committee, or mayor, which will be assumed by whoever gets elected after, in the next election. So I think it's a little, I understand what you're saying, but it's a little shorthand to say you're increasing your own salary. And so the reason the ordinance amendment was made, and we did it in conjunction with the budget analysts who recognize, having been in government, state and local government for decades, that in order to give the city council a vehicle for reviewing this difficult issue, having this difficult conversation on a regular basis and not go 26 years without raises, just to introduce something where at least you check in every 2 years and at least have the conversation. It doesn't mean you need to increase anybody's salary, but you're having the conversation and then you don't go 26 years without even having the discussion. So that's the history behind it. You can repeal it if you want, but that's why it was enacted.
Thank you, Solicitor.
So, Madam, I guess my last comment then is, I do plan to file an ordinance change amending that. I think it's too frequent. We're talking about our own salaries, that of the mayor, more frequently than we're talking about things that, our constituents care a whole lot more about. And I just don't think it's appropriate use of our time. So I stand by receive and place on file.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there other questions or comments for discussion from members of the council? Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. I think I would just add, I am also in favor of having this conversation more regularly because I think it takes some of the stigma out of the conversation. We should be able to talk about what our stipends are. We talk about every other part of the budget at least once a year, ideally more than that. And so I think making it routine, making it less dramatic, making it more public, all makes it easier to have that conversation. Again, whether the outcome is, you know, the stipends for city council and school committee should stay what they are for 26 years, like we should be able to have that conversation without it being personal, without it being too painful to talk about. And the only way to get there is to talk about it, so.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Feldman.
I tend to agree with both Councilors Sweeney and Bowen. I would prefer we did have a discussion about this and do revisit it because, as Solicitor Williams says, it is very short-sighted to think that it's for raising our salaries, because I never think of it as my salary. I think of it as the Ward 5 City Councilor's salary. And in any organization, if you want to recruit diverse voices and talents and perspectives, you really do need to make it something that somebody would have a reason to run. And I don't want to be doing this forever. And I would love if somebody saw an opportunity because it was just enough for them to make it worth their while if they were working another part-time job or something that didn't make enough, and this made the difference. I may not need the money, but I would like this position to be able to be held by somebody that may need it, because that would bring a different perspective to our council as a whole. So I don't look at it as raising our salaries. I look at it as keeping pace with the market and the times and recruiting top talent for the positions in elected office.
Councilor Tendo, then Councilor Houseman.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to remind also, when we did revisit this a few years ago, that I did work with Mr. Perry on this, and also remind that when we were looking as a council, that 4 of those councils had left, 2 of them had retired, 1 had decided to only serve 1 term, and your seat actually had, I think, 3 councilors in it. So I just want to remind that it isn't us that are voting for ourselves or the Mayor Cahill, as it's constantly brought to me. It's the offices that we're looking at, and that's what we got to keep it as objective as possible. I think the reason why we asked Mr. Perry was to try to make it less political. We can't take the politics out of it, but at least getting his opinion and having that position, the budget analyst, because obviously it may not be Mr. Perry next time around. So I just want to remind that, you know, this council had been changed over already too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Houseman.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues to say we should discuss this and for the reasons that they stated. But I'd also add that when we last met at a special meeting, one of the things I heard loud and clear were people appreciating that the council actually spoke about the issues at hand and asked for an opportunity to and sort of to learn more and to have more transparency around city government and learn more about how it works. And I think this is an important part of discussion, regardless of however the council may vote. And particularly would underscore that this is not a discussion that relates to us who are here. We will all change. It's a conversation about this office. It's a conversation about the office of the mayor, a conversation about the offices of the city, of the school committee. And I agree that it's not appropriate to be concerned about the current politics and the awkwardness that might follow from the negotiated and the settlement and the strike and so forth. I'll leave it at that. I intend to vote to have the discussion.
Councilor St. Hilaire, I saw your hand.
I'm good.
Okay. Any other comments from councilors? So the first matter that we need to attend to is to determine what to do with the recommendation from the subcommittee. That is a recommendation to receive and place on file. And so we'll take that question first. So the question comes on the acceptance of the recommendation of the subcommittee. All those in favor of receiving and placing on file? All those opposed? Okay, that recommendation fails 2-7. So given that, my personal feeling is Counselor Bowen is correct. An ordinance change does not require a public hearing. My personal feeling is that this particular ordinance change would be a poor one to not have a public hearing on. And so given that, I would entertain a motion then to hold the special meeting at 6 p.m. before our regular council meeting on the 16th and schedule the public hearing for that time. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, you're just saying aye, sorry.
I was just trying to check my calendar.
Okay. All those opposed? All right, that passes 7-2. So Ms. Kent will work together to get that into the paper, and also we will post a special meeting to be held at 6 p.m. before our regular council meeting on December 16th for the purposes of holding this public hearing on Order 280A. All right, thank you. Was that the end of subcommittee reports? It was. All right. Any announcements or reminders from members of the council? Councilor Feldman.
Yes, we will be having our second meeting of the Financial Forecasting Committee on Wednesday at 6:30 here in council chambers.
Thank you very much, Councilor Feldman. And those meetings are open to the public?
They are open to the public. They are not open to public comment, but they are open to the public.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Any other, Councilor Rotundo?
Madam President, just because the next meeting won't be till the 16th, there is a new event happening at Odell Park, Veterans Park, as some may know, across from the post office. December 14th, it's to be brought on by Beverly Main Street, Beverly 400. They're doing a memory tree. Aaron Truex, of the executive director of Main Street's running this. It will coincide with the winter market that's happening in winter on that date as well. So again, it's December 14th at 4 p.m. at Odell Park. Will be the first and hopefully continue going forward with the tree lighting and memorial ornaments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. And that's a good reminder that the winter market is on Rantoul Street on the 14th and a focus on Cabot Street on the 13th. So we've got a weekend of downtown events coming up. Any other announcements from members of the council? Councilor Rotundo again.
People may not realize this, but I want to give accolades to Councilor Crowley for all the work he did for the holiday parade yesterday. People don't realize how much work and time he puts into it. So I just wanted to say thank you for another successful parade, a very large one. I just want to give you my appreciation to it.
It was a team effort. I appreciate it, though. It was a team effort. We all had a good time, and it was good to see everybody. And it was actually good to see all the smiling faces and everybody having a great time. So happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Crowley. And thanks for that reminder, Councilor Rotundo, to express that appreciation. Councilor Houseman.
Yes, I just want to congratulate Councilor Crowley on having the world's longest parade. It seemed to actually go on forever. By the time I was done and walked back, it was still going. So thank you and congratulations, job well done.
We'll see about getting you in the Guinness Book of World Records for that one. Any other announcements from members of the council? All right, well, with that, thank you again to members of the public who joined us, those who spoke and those who were here during the evening with us. Thank you to members of our pedestrian and bike committee who came and presented this evening on the work that's going on, important work in our community right now. Thank you to members of our city staff who were here, Mr. Ailes, Solicitor Williams. Thank you to our budget analyst, Mr. Jerry Perry, our Board of Assessors Chair, Frank Golden. And of course, thanks to Kim in the BevCam booth for keeping everything rolling live and accessible for folks wherever they are. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. That carries 9-0. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Good night.